Joshua held his sister's mangled corpse, clenching his fists in rage, as the savage alien bastards who killed her fled to the stars, not knowing the hell humanity would unleash upon their monstrous hides. Earth's ancient, genetically engineered warbeasts. Humanity had spread its roots to the stars, fleeing an Earth torn by centuries of war, strife, and bloodshed. The colonists of the remote world of New Eden hoped for a fresh start, a chance to build anew and forget the sins of the past. Joshua Freeman and his family were part of one such settlement, humble farmers seeking a simple life of peace. That fragile dream was shattered when the Trill landed. The insectoid aliens claimed they came in peace, but as they moved through the settlement with a predatory edge, 16-year-old Joshua sensed something was off. His suspicions were confirmed in a fiery explosion, and his little sister Emily's dying scream. As quickly as they'd come, the aliens and their leader Murloc fled back to the stars, leaving devastation in their wake. Joshua's father, colony leader Michael Freeman, was quick to call for help from the United Terran Federation on Earth. But Joshua knew in his bones that talk and politics were useless. His sister's blood cried out for vengeance from the dirt, and he would have it. Digging through ancient records, Joshua uncovered a dark secret: genetically engineered creatures of war, nightmarish beasts from humanity's blood-stained past. These warbeasts, if he could find them, could slake his thirst for alien blood. The UTF's delegation would seek peace and negotiation, but Joshua would awaken the monsters to ensure the Trill never threatened humanity again, even if he had to tear the stars apart with his bare hands. The aliens had sowed the wind. Now they would reap the whirlwind of humanity's wrath. Joshua dove headfirst into the UTF database, spending hours combing through restricted files and heavily encrypted data. His eyes grew bloodshot as he pored over the information, the glow of the screen casting an eerie light on his face. Finally, he found what he was looking for: the warbeasts. The creatures were the stuff of nightmares, genetically engineered abominations created by combining the DNA of Earth's most fearsome predators. Among the most terrifying were the chimeras, unholy fusions of lions, tigers, and bears, with the keen intelligence and unwavering loyalty of dogs and wolves. Joshua knew these monsters could be the key to his revenge. With a shaking hand, he reached for his communicator and dialed a familiar number. "Daniel," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's Joshua. I need your help." Daniel, a 22-year-old cadet at the UTF Military Academy, listened intently as his younger brother laid out his plan. Steal the genetic samples of the warbeasts from the UTF's secure storage facility, unleash them against the Trill, make them pay for what they did to Emily. At first Daniel was hesitant. The plan was risky, borderline insane. But as Joshua spoke, his words laced with a quiet fury, Daniel felt his own anger rising. He thought of his little sister, her life cut short by the Trill's cruelty. He thought of his family, torn apart by grief and pain. In the end, he agreed to help, driven by a burning desire for justice and the need to protect what remained of his loved ones. Back on New Eden, the UTF delegation had arrived, led by the no-nonsense Ambassador Natalie Summers and her assistant, Mark Thompson. They met with Joshua's father, Michael Freeman, and the settlement's council, their faces grim as they discussed the incident and the Trill's possible motives. Ambassador Summers assured the settlers that the UTF would do everything in its power to protect them and bring the Trill to justice. But as Joshua listened from the shadows, he couldn't shake the feeling that talk and diplomacy would never be enough, not against an enemy like the Trill. As the meeting dragged on, Joshua slipped away, returning to his research with renewed determination. He dug deeper into the UTF's files, uncovering a disturbing pattern of behavior from the Trill. They had a history of infiltrating and exploiting other species, using their advanced technology and mind control abilities to manipulate their victims. But there was one weakness, one chink in their seemingly impenetrable armor. The Trill were particularly vulnerable to certain frequencies of sound, which could disrupt their hive mind communication and cause them immense pain. A plan began to take shape in Joshua's mind, a plan that would use the Warbeasts and the Trill's own weaknesses against them. He would need Daniel's help, and a hell of a lot of luck, but he was ready to do whatever it took to avenge his sister and protect his family, no matter the cost. On Earth, Daniel crept through the shadows of the UTF's secure storage facility, his heart pounding in his chest. The Warbeast genetic samples were housed in a heavily guarded section of the complex, but Daniel was determined to retrieve them at any cost. Using his knowledge of the facility's layout and security systems, Daniel managed to bypass the guards and surveillance cameras, making his way to the vault where the samples were stored. With trembling hands, he entered the access code and stepped inside, his eyes widening at the sight of the countless vials and containers lining the shelves. Daniel quickly located the Chimera samples, along with those of the raptors and behemoths. He carefully packed them into a secure case, his mind racing with thoughts of the incredible power these creatures possessed. As he turned to leave, the vault door swung open, revealing the imposing figure of Colonel Viktor Sokolov. Daniel froze, his blood running cold as he met his commanding officer's piercing gaze. "Cadet Freeman," Colonel Sokolov said, his voice low and menacing, "what exactly do you think you're doing?" Daniel swallowed hard, his mind searching for the right words. He knew he had to convince Colonel Sokolov of the urgency of the situation, of the terrible truth behind Emily's death, and the looming threat of the Trill. "Sir," Daniel began, his voice shaking, "I know this looks bad, but you have to listen to me. The Trill, the aliens who attacked New Eden, they killed my sister. They're planning something bigger, something that could threaten all of humanity." Colonel Sokolov's eyes narrowed, but he remained silent, allowing Daniel to continue. "My brother Joshua, he's on New Eden. He has a plan to use these Warbeasts against the Trill, to make them pay for what they did to our family, to protect our people. But we need your help, sir. We need you to understand." For a long moment, Colonel Sokolov studied Daniel, his expression unreadable. Then, to Daniel's surprise, the colonel nodded slowly. "I've seen the reports from New Eden," he said. "I had my suspicions about the Trill, but I never imagined they would go this far. If what you're saying is true, then we have no choice. We must act, and we must act now." Together, Daniel and Colonel Sokolov arranged for the stolen genetic samples to be transported to New Eden, using the colonel's connections within the UTF to ensure the operation remained covert. As the samples made their way across the stars, Joshua worked tirelessly on New Eden, monitoring the UTF delegation's progress and intercepting encrypted communications between Murloc and the Trill homeworld. What he discovered chilled him to the bone. The attack on the settlement, Emily's death, it was all part of a larger plan, a test of human defenses and a gathering of intelligence for a potential invasion. Joshua immediately shared this information with his father, who wasted no time in informing Ambassador Summers and the UTF delegation. The news sent shockwaves through the settlement, and tension mounted as the threat of a full-scale Trill invasion loomed on the horizon. But hope arrived in the form of a covert UTF Black Ops team, led by none other than Colonel Sokolov himself. The team delivered the stolen Warbeast genetic samples to New Eden, and with the help of the settlement's scientists, Joshua and Daniel began the process of cultivating and raising the creatures in secret. As the Warbeasts grew and developed at an astonishing rate, Joshua and Daniel poured their hearts and souls into training and controlling them. They forged an unbreakable bond with the creatures, united by their shared desire for justice and vengeance against the Trill. But even as they worked, the spectre of the impending Trill invasion hung over them like a dark cloud. They knew that time was running out, and that the Warbeasts might be their only hope of survival. As the days turned into weeks, Joshua and Daniel worked tirelessly with the Warbeasts, honing their skills and forging unbreakable bonds. The Chimeras, with their raw power and ferocity, learned to channel their aggression into calculated strikes. The Raptors, swift and cunning, mastered the art of coordinated pack hunting, and the Behemoths, towering and indomitable, became an impenetrable wall of muscle and armor. But even as the Warbeasts grew stronger, a dark cloud loomed over New Eden. Ambassador Summers and her team, who had been locked in tense negotiations with the Trill, were suddenly recalled to Earth without explanation. Joshua and Daniel, their suspicions aroused, took matters into their own hands. Under the cover of night, they infiltrated the UTF delegation's abandoned headquarters, determined to uncover the truth. As they hacked into the communication network, a chilling revelation unfolded before their eyes. The Trill had infiltrated the highest echelons of Earth's government, their insidious mind control technology, turning key officials into puppets dancing to their tune. Joshua's blood ran cold as he realized the extent of the Trill's manipulation. They had been sabotaging humanity's defenses from within, leaving them vulnerable to the impending invasion. Time was running out. With a heavy heart, Joshua and Daniel brought their findings to Colonel Sokolov. The battle-hardened soldier listened intently, his face darkening with each revelation. As the weight of the situation settled upon them, they knew there was only one course of action left. They would take the fight to the Trill. As they prepared for the daring mission, a klaxon blared through the settlement, shattering the tense silence. Joshua rushed outside, his heart pounding, and looked up to see a massive Trill fleet appearing in orbit around New Eden. The Trill ships hung in the sky like menacing predators, their sleek insectoid forms casting long shadows over the colony. A booming voice echoed through the air, filled with cold malice. It was Murloc, the Trill commander, who had led the attack on the settlement. "People of New Eden," he declared, "your pathetic resistance ends now. Surrender immediately, or face complete annihilation." Joshua's hands clenched into fists, his rage and grief boiling over. He knew what he had to do. With a roar of defiance, Joshua gave the order to release the Warbeasts. The cages swung open, and the chimeras, raptors, and behemoths surged forth, their eyes gleaming with a fierce primal hunger. As the Trill ground forces landed, the Warbeasts met them head-on. Chimeras tore through the Trill ranks, their claws and fangs rending metal and chitin. Raptors darted in and out, their coordinated strikes leaving the Trill soldiers reeling, and the behemoths, their armored hides shrugging off the Trill's weapons, crushed their foes beneath their massive bulk. The battle raged across the settlement, the air filled with the screams of the dying and the roars of the Warbeasts. Joshua and Daniel fought side by side, their weapons blazing as they pushed the Trill back. High above the chaos, Colonel Sokolov led a daring assault on the Trill flagship. Armed with a prototype weapon designed to exploit the Trill's vulnerability to specific sound frequencies, he and his team breached the ship's defenses. The weapon pulsed with an eerie, discordant hum, and the Trill crew writhed in agony, their hive-mind communication shattered. Seizing the moment, Joshua and Daniel boarded the crippled flagship, fighting their way to the bridge. There they confronted Murloc, the Trill commander's once arrogant demeanor replaced by a haunted, desperate look. "Why?" Joshua demanded, his voice shaking with barely contained fury. "Why did you kill my sister? Why are you attacking us?" Murloc's shoulders slumped, and he let out a weary sigh. "You don't understand," he said, his voice tinged with a strange, mournful note. "We had no choice. Our homeworld is dying, our resources dwindling. We needed new territory to survive." He looked up at Joshua, his eyes filled with a mix of regret and determination. "Emily's death was an accident, a tragic consequence of our mission. We never meant to harm your people, not intentionally. But we will do whatever it takes to ensure the survival of the Trill, even if it means war." Joshua's grip tightened on his weapon, his mind reeling from the revelation. The lines between right and wrong blurred, and he found himself torn between his desire for vengeance and the realization that the Trill, too, were fighting for their very existence. As the standoff stretched on, the weight of the moment bearing down upon them, Joshua knew that the next few minutes would determine the fate of not just New Eden, but of two entire species locked in a desperate struggle for survival. Joshua and Daniel stood on the bridge of the Trill flagship, the weight of Murloc's revelation hanging heavy in the air. The Trill commander lay dying at their feet, his lifeblood pooling on the cold metal floor. Joshua's grip tightened on his weapon, his mind reeling. Could there be another way? Could they find a path to peace, even after all the death and destruction? Daniel's eyes met his brother's, a flicker of doubt passing between them. But before they could speak, the doors to the bridge burst open, and a squad of Trill soldiers loyal to Murloc stormed in, their weapons trained on the humans. "Drop your weapons," one of the soldiers barked, his voice cold and harsh. "Surrender now or die." Joshua and Daniel exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. There would be no surrender, no peace, only the cold, hard reality of survival. As the Trill soldiers opened fire, Joshua and Daniel dove for cover, their own weapons spitting deadly streams of plasma. The air was filled with the scream of energy weapons and the stench of burning flesh. In the chaos of the battle, Murloc stirred, his eyes glassy with pain. With a trembling hand, he reached for a hidden control panel, his fingers dancing across the keys. A sudden, piercing alarm split the air, and a holographic display sprang to life above the control panel. Joshua's eyes widened as he read the words scrolling across the screen. Bioweapon activation sequence initiated. Deployment in T-10 minutes. Murloc's lips twisted in a cruel smile, his voice a rasping whisper. "You may have won this battle, humans, but you will lose the war. My people will survive, no matter the cost." With a final shuddering breath, Murloc slumped back, his eyes staring sightlessly at the ceiling. Joshua and Daniel stood frozen, the weight of Murloc's final act crushing down on them, a bioweapon designed to wipe out all human life on New Eden, and they had only minutes to stop it. "We have to find that weapon," Daniel said, his voice tight with urgency. "We have to destroy it before it's too late." Joshua nodded, his jaw set with grim determination. "Let's go." They raced through the corridors of the Trill ship, following the schematics Colonel Sokolov had provided. The colonel himself brought up the rear, his weapon at the ready, his eyes scanning for any sign of resistance. As they rounded a corner, they found themselves face to face with a heavily armored door, a biohazard symbol emblazoned across its surface. "This is it," Joshua said, his heart pounding in his chest. "The bioweapon must be behind this door." Daniel stepped forward, his fingers flying across the keypad. The lock beeped and the door slid open with a hiss of hydraulics. Inside, a massive cylindrical device dominated the room, its surface pulsing with an eerie green light. Tubes and wires snaked from its base, disappearing into the ship's systems. "The delivery mechanism," Colonel Sokolov said, his voice grim. "We need to disable it now." Joshua and Daniel set to work, their hands shaking as they tore at the wires and tubes. The seconds ticked by, each one an eternity, as they raced against the clock. Finally, with a shuddering groan, the device powered down, its lights fading to black. "We did it," Daniel breathed, his shoulders sagging with relief. "We stopped the bioweapon." But as they turned to leave, a sudden, sickening realization hit them. Colonel Sokolov lay slumped against the wall, his face ashen, his eyes glassy. Joshua rushed to his side, his heart in his throat. But it was too late. The colonel had been exposed to the bioweapon, a lethal dose that had stolen his life in a matter of moments. Tears stung Joshua's eyes as he gently closed the colonel's eyelids, his hand trembling. They had stopped the weapon, but at a terrible cost. As they made their way back to the surface of New Eden, the Trill fleet in full retreat, Joshua and Daniel were greeted by a scene of utter devastation. The settlement lay in ruins, the bodies of the fallen littering the streets. And in the distance, the Warbeasts ran free, their eyes gleaming with a feral, untamed hunger. The creatures they had unleashed to save their people had now become the greatest threat to their survival. Joshua's heart sank as he watched the beasts tear through the ruins, their howls echoing in the air. What had they done? In their quest for vengeance, they had unleashed a nightmare upon the galaxy. "We have to stop them," Daniel said, his voice hollow with despair. "We have to find a way to contain the Warbeasts before they destroy everything we've fought to protect." Joshua nodded, his eyes haunted. They had to find a way, they had to make this right. But as they set out across the ruined landscape, the weight of their choices bearing down on them, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had unleashed a horror beyond their control, and that the price of their vengeance would be paid in blood. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.